Welcome everyone to this 3rd of June Hunter Living History Showcase. I'd like to hand over to Shane Frost, what we call Descendant, to do a welcome to country for us.
Earlier team, what we call Shane Languni. I'm Shane. I'm a man from Awaba, or Lake Macquarie, and I'd just like to welcome everyone here today to traditional country of my ancestors. I haven't been to one of these meetings before, obviously, so I don't know how it runs, but anyway, I'm standing up talking. And
on beach or go on walk.
We get Zoom ghosts coming.
Oh, right. Yeah, so I just want to say that my people have lived here for thousands of years, and you know, there's a lot to talk about. I haven't got any time to talk about it. You can't talk about 60,000 years of history in a couple of minutes, but I'd just like you to think about the people that's gone before, because it's important. We don't necessarily think about those people in the times that have passed, and I'll be talking a bit later about something else. And I think it's important that everyone leaves a story behind them, and it's important to remember those people. And today we're here on the traditional country of my ancestors, and there's a story behind that. Normally I'd talk about something from the area, which I will do right now. There's a particular tree, people know it as a grass tree, and we call it cutty grass, or cutty means pointy. And the stalk that grows out of that, I was a National Parks Ranger for quite a while, and I used to say to people, if I haven't taught you something today, then I haven't done my job. And that's why I like to tell it at least something, so people learn something, so that you'd know there's a stalk grows out of the top of the cutty grass, or the kangaroo tail, people call it, and it's the stalk that the flower grows on. Well, that stalk was used by our people, and how it was used was to make the spear shafts. So it's hollow. It's the grass that grows out forms together and laminates itself and grows that stalk. And it's hollow and it's really light, but it's extremely strong. And if it's bent, you can put it over the fire and heat it up, and the resin in it allows it to be bent. And they put it in their mouth and bend it, bend it on your knee, and you bend it straight. And up the end where the flower stalk is, when you take that off, that's the really hard section of it, so that you can put the woomer on and it won't split it. So that's a really hard, solid section of it where that flower stalk grows at the top, on that spike. So you take that, you put a hardwood spike into it, about 2 foot long into it. The gum that comes from that tree is resin. That would be put on it to hold that spear and the shaft with the spike together, and you could use it for all different things. So, you know, there was war spears and you know, and hunting spears. What's that?
Fishing spears?
Well, fishing spears, yeah, they're actually made out of what we call a minmai. Right. So the minmai is what people know as a Guiamere lily. So the Guiamere lily has that stalk that grows out, same thing, and on the top you get the big flower that everyone thinks is a waratah. But anyway, that is the one that was used for the fishing spear. So you then bind 3 or 4 prongs onto the end of that, and that's what was the fishing spear. So anyway, I'll wrap it up, and hopefully at least one person didn't know what I just have told you, and maybe you've learnt something. But that's something that our people have used for thousands of years, and I just thought, well, I'll bring that to you too. So everyone, like I say, when you're out and about, think about the people who were here before you, and who's walked on this land, because there's no part of this land that our people hasn't been on. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Shane. And Shane will be launching his book, so you can, after this next session. Anyway, we're here primarily to celebrate or honour the 20th anniversary of the Coal River Project into New South Wales Parliamentary Hansard. So I'd like to warmly welcome our special guest, the Chancellor of the University of Newcastle, Patricia Forsyth AM, to the Hunter Living History Showcase today. Yesterday, 2nd of June 2024, marked the 20th anniversary that the Honourable Patricia Forsyth AM, as Parliamentary Secretary to the Leader of the Opposition and Member of the Legislative Council, became the first politician to champion the work of Doug Lithgow and the Coal River Project, now the Hunter Living Histories, in celebration of Newcastle in New South Wales. And she did that into Parliamentary Hansard at close to 2 o'clock in the morning. Which was very dedicated. So we couldn't let this anniversary go by. So we've asked Doug Lithgow, President of the Parks and Playgrounds Movement, a friend of the City of Newcastle, to be here. Also zooming in, we have Professor Eric Eklund. Eric, are you out there in Zoom land?
Yes, I am, Gioni. Hello, everyone.
Who was a lecturer here in history at the time, as well as the Coal River Working Party's first chair, and who since leaving the university has held prestigious positions at Monash, the Australian National University, the Federation University, and now at Sea Power Centre in Canberra. Have I got that right, Eric?
Yes, perfect. Thank you very much.
That's great. So, as you can see, Doug is still alive, as we all are, and I just want to invite Dr. Anne Hardy to provide an overview of the 20 years of achievement that this town and gown research team that you placed your faith in 20 years ago has been able to achieve in that time. Over to you, Anne.
Okay, thank you, Janie. This timeline was put together at the time of February last year by one of our work integrated learning students. That was sort of just to mark the milestones of the evolution of this group and some of the achievements from those early days. So from the beginnings, I think it started the late 1990s, where there was coming together of different community members, including people at the university, to start thinking about a working party that was able to look at specifically that Nobby's, Fort Scratchley area and heritage protection. A lot of the research and historical research to repatriate particularly digital maps and survey material from the UK. They created a brochure, so this link has embedded like a lot of those key documents that were produced. And as you can see, the foundation of the Coal River Working Party, 2003, first meeting, people that were involved in that meeting to really spearhead bringing together the historical material. There was a lot of media coverage and participation from communities, National Trust, workshops through council that was supported and influenced by the Parks and Playgrounds movement and the work of Doug's. Was successful in having the Coal River Precinct listed on the State Heritage Register. And then there was the task of going in and having a look and trying to locate the physical mine adits that were in the Fort Scratchley area. They had a team, sent cameras in. I know Johnny and Doug were involved with that, and Eric with Newcastle City Council, and it was quite an occasion where they also had an open day and invited school children in. That sort of well documented on our Hunter Living History site, but really bringing attention to the significance of the area. that they really are the lost coal mines, that they are the earliest working coal mines in the Southern Hemisphere. So we've got the adits down at Port Scratchley and then the shafts up on top of the hill where the James Fletcher site is. A lot of work went into trying to bring together and argue for national significance. So that ran over a number of years, probably 6 or 7 years, with numerous attempts. Unfortunately, it wasn't successful, but what it did in the meantime was bring a lot of those important historical documents together. The drilling results, that's where we were able to work with Coffee, Geosciences, and have some of our survey engineering students involved in doing research and writing up reports.
And winning awards.
Winning awards. So a really lovely collaboration. So Eric, who's joined us, was the inaugural chair. Johnny de Gravier was appointed in 2008 as the chair. And since then, we've sort of been involved in a lot of multidisciplinary projects to really try to bring people in from across the university, from different disciplines to get involved and really research this area. And then the launch of our Vera Deakin Regional History Fund. Many of us remember the late Vera Deakin, and that fund is still going today and has employed a lot of students and community members over the years to work on different size projects to help make a lot of these historical documents more accessible. We had the Governor of New South Wales at an event to do the handover of the Beralia plan that was very instrumental in helping unlock the key to how the surveyors saw the area and where the mines were located. I'll just skip through these because we had art exhibitions. The Mitchell Field book was really significant because of some of the early documentation of Aboriginal place names. So when we worked with a team to designate dual naming across the Newcastle area, this was just one of the field books that was used, that the Aboriginal communities went back to wanting to look at what was the earliest documented Aboriginal name, and that was sort of the convention they used here in Newcastle. The quest to locate Macquarie Pier Foundation. So again, that was another big project that involved a lot of community members. Then we have our natural history illustration students back in 2010, led by Dr. Anne Llewellyn, and John Fryer was involved in interpreting some of the Mitchell field books again, and then having natural history illustration students reinterpret. Measuring the height of knobbies, just comparing accuracy against the Beralia plan and some of the early artworks by Edward Charles Close. The James Fletcher Hospital, that also, like I mentioned earlier, has got some of the historic coal mines, some of the earliest in the Southern Hemisphere. The team, and again, it was a group effort to have that whole precinct that's called the government domain also heritage listed on the State Heritage Register. So we found over the years the precinct and the research was really moving outwards and across the city. So I'll just skip through here because these are just related events, and the work of Charles Martin sort of continues today, that, you know, that push to use new technologies to reimagine Newcastle and what it would have looked like back in the early 1800s. And again, one of our big supporters, Marie Gleeson, who I know zooming in today, is just, has been there sort of the whole time supporting a lot of our work. That's a copy of one of the national nominations. And I might just skip through to the end. So after the meeting, I will share this timeline for anyone that wants to go back and just have a look at any of the particular. This was the name change from Coal River Working Party to the Hunter Living Histories Initiative. We worked with some communication students in look at revamping what our brand was and how we looked. And again, I think that's where that shift of focus on the hunter just broadened our reach, and people being able to come and sort of talk about how they've used our resources that relate to any part of the Hunter region. The Glamix Lab opened in 2016, and that was to host work integrated learning students. It's where all our community volunteers and student volunteers work with donors and community and researchers in digitising our material. We had Past Matters seminars to highlight some of our Aboriginal collections, and one of those collections related to the Aboriginal stone tools that were found on the former Palais site in Newcastle West. So again, Kerry, who's here today, and Shane were involved in that project to 3D scan some of the artefacts and have like a virtual archaeological trench that could be experienced by some of our communities. Charles's work, another 3D project relating to the Victoria Theatre, that's sort of been an ongoing project involving creative industry students. We had the Store Oral History Project. Again, that was a collaboration between the developer, heritage consultant, students and the library, and getting some of those oral histories out about our archive, our NBN archive that's been digitised by our team. And just some testimonials that we've had from previous participants and people involved in our projects. But I guess that 20 years is just like a bit of a snapshot to sort of see how we've evolved. But, you know, the work that was done by Doug and National Trust, support by Patricia, just elevating the importance of that Colwyn precinct. I think a lot has come out of it.
Well, part of the failure of getting us onto the national register was that we found that a lot of Newcastle people just went around aware of our own history. So, I mean, a lot of the push, even with the Palais Royal site, helped trigger a review of the legislation around Aboriginal heritage around the state. But recently we've had the Stories of Our Town team have been sort of taking these stories to a new level. So thank you for that support that you showed us initially. So Doug, would you like to say anything? Eric?
It's lovely to see Eric. All those days. I haven't met Eric giving lectures in Bendigo since then. But he's always been there. It's great to know. And the other thing that I really think is wonderful is that the university, when they set up Eric's committee, they actually funded it with a I've forgotten her name here, with a what administration. See, they gave it administration, which was later taken away, which was a real shame, because you need the administration to keep contacts with people, and you needed to see that meetings are properly minuted and so on. I know we do. I'm not casting aspersions on anyone. I'm just thinking it was very, very busy those first times, and the idea of getting understanding the beginnings of Newcastle and the colonial effect on the Aboriginal people was devastating, and you've got to really understand that for the beginning of Newcastle. But what did we do? We made that booklet that brought together stories, and in that effort it was Cynthia Hunter that was the really academic powerhouse. I know we had some very interesting people in the Parks and Playgrounds Movement at the time. Joe Ridgely must be remembered, and Tom Farrell. And Tom's daughter and family were all interested in setting up in Newcastle because they did the Newcastle University, because they didn't like having to send their daughters down to Sydney to go to the university. So that the only chance to get a university education for, I think, for young women was having a university in Newcastle, and they didn't. The local group didn't want to see it as just another technological just a technological place where you learn to work at the BHP or something like that. Yeah, I mean, Newcastle's early days were, the university early days were very hard work for the people that were involved all around the community, and also I just can't remember the people in the WEA that I was very much involved in that were involved in the university establishment. It was really wonderful. And my best man at my wedding was the planner at the university, Don Morris. Yeah, Don Morris and Shirley. They were just such wonderful people to support us. So we've had it's been a real link between the university and the town. It's been so important in Newcastle. So it's a most incredible situation, really. And you think of Madison and coming to Newcastle and putting forward the health aspect, and that's been all swept away. I just found that really disturbing, and it's the sort of thing that always happened to Newcastle, because Newcastle somehow had been always left off or taken for granted, really, because they knew they were there doing the working, because it was the powerhouse of the state to a large extent. But look, that's just mine. I'm sorry. I just yes, it's really wonderful to see what Joni and the crew have done. It's wonderful, really good. It's flowered very good.
Can we clap?
Eric, did you want to say a few words before we hand over to the Chancellor?
Thanks, Journey. I'd love to say a few words. I'll keep it very short, but it's a real honour to be here after 20 years. I can barely believe it, but there you go. And it's great to hear from yourself and Anne and Doug and others. I think that the early days of the Coal River Working Party were challenging for the university, partly because it was such a cutting-edge project, and we were very much working with the community as equal partners, including First Nations, I might add too. And that was, I think, a new mode of operating for the university. But I think Newcastle should be very proud that they have people like Doug and Gioni and Anne and others. And the university, I think, should be very proud too that the initiative is still going, albeit renamed. So when I look back on some of the things that I've done in my academic career, I think this is the thing that got me out of the office and got me out of the lecture room, and really taught me a lot about working with other people and collaborating, and taught me a lot about Newcastle history as well. So I was absolutely thrilled to be there at the beginning, and likewise honoured to be zooming in here today. So Well done, Doug, and thanks everyone.
Thank you, William. Chancellor,
You'd like me to say something?
whatever you'd like to say.
Excuse my voice, I think it's called grandmother's child germs, and it's over a week ago. But anyway, I'm getting there. Can I just say good afternoon and welcome to all of you, and acknowledge the traditional custodians, the Awalkal people, and I should acknowledge, because it's Newcastle, the Worimi as well, and pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. I'm almost speechless about being here, and I must say, when the wheel turning and somebody pulled out the Hansard of 20 years ago at the time, and the irony is I went looking for the speech, and if you can get to a Hansard in many different ways, but one of them is the speaker's name, so I often need to look for things, and I'll go into my own name. So I went in there by the date you gave me that speech, and everything I did on that day is not in the Hansard. So I said to my assistant, I can't find that speech. She went in the traditional way by a date. Anyway, she found it. So I've now got to go back to Hansard and say, you're missing whole sections, because on that day I was speaking on a raft of bills, because I then saw it all. None of them are in there. So you've got, I'm going to do my own digging now. You've given me.
We'll do it because.
But anyway, that's an aside. Look, it is a bit of a wheel turning in all of this, but in the course of looking for that, I kept digging up speeches around Newcastle or the university about which I had spoken at the time, because even though I was living in Sydney, from my first speech, I always talked about myself being an ambassador for the city, and I often came back to the university to talk about it. I'm a trained teacher, so my first career was in education. I was later the Shadow Minister for Education. I was later on the Board of Studies. I was for a decade on Macquarie University Council. So I've never been far from universities and education from my time here. But even here, I was a bit of an activist student, and if there were things happening around the campus, I tended to be involved. I was just saying that in the year after I graduated, I came and interviewed James Ogmuty on behalf of the Liberal Party in Newcastle, because I convinced them we needed to put in a submission in support of the medical faculty. So somewhere in the Senate archives, you can find a submission that I wrote. I'm sort of, this upstart young. I think I had graduated at that point, but anyway, the Vice-Chancellor duly gave me an audience, and I wrote down some things and we turned it into a submission. So, but now here I am as Chancellor. I've never lost the belief that the power of this university and the modern day power of this city is that the university and the city and its citizens have always worked well together. And that concept of the town and gown has never been lost, but it's been one that's been interwoven. And I have spent, as I said, I spent 10 years on the council of Macquarie. I spent a lot of time visiting other universities. We are by far the strongest in the interaction between the community. So the Living Histories project is just another embodiment of a long history of having done that. And I, as some people know, I did a little tour of the University Library last Friday. It's taken me 5 months since I've been formally took up the role as Chancellor to get my foot in the door, but to get a real sense of all parts of the university, it's taking me that long. But I did see some of the history work, some of what's being done, and it is such a jewel for the university, but for the broader community. I saw some of the work, if things are being digitalised now, and it's, if you go down to Canberra and you go to the archives of the National Library, the big Trove project, they're trying to get everything medial and digital and books. We're doing our own bit here, and at some point I'll come hunting back through some of those as well. But so it's wonderful, and I'm delighted to be back. And also it's a chance to acknowledge Doug. We've been running into each other for years, probably over environmental things at some point. And but really to say thank you to all of you for the engagement that you've all had, not only with this project, but broadly that commitment between the university and the city, and the role of the community. We don't exist as an ivory tower where you close the gates at the end of each day and things are on the outside. The success of universities is that engagement. We don't exist on our own. All the research we do is for the betterment of people, whether it's locally or globally, and it's for the education of young people, the real uplift. So whether it's at the excellence end of our scale or the equity end of the scale, we've got some good stories to tell about the intermingling. But just a chance to say thank you to Doug. I'm not sure that 20 years ago I imagined I was going to be sitting back here, one, reflecting on the speech, but two, that I might be Chancellor. Although I might have been accused of being ambitious once or twice in my life. I've had lots of great opportunities, and to have put this at the end of it and say what a wonderful chance I've now been given to sort of bring a lot of those things together. So thank you to all of you. Thank you for inviting me. I'm probably leaving about 2. I'm having one of these days where I've started doing something in Sydney and I'm back almost next door to where I was by 7 o'clock tonight, and somewhere I've got to go home. And so I won't be staying till the end of your day. But it's terrific to join you, and well done to Doug again. Thank you.
Thank you very much for making the effort to drive up here and then drive back. It's terrible. It's terrible. I hate going to Sydney at the best of times, but anyway. And Doug's also had his dramas too, and just it's like we're very lucky to have a wonderful, generous community, and the amount of work that goes on is just great. It's great to be connected to it. It's great to connect the students to it because it just deepens the whole experience, and make some changes. So hopefully we'll be recognised on a national level at one time, maybe sometime. But at the moment, I think it's really about getting the region to understand, because it's such a modest place that it just doesn't. I always call ourselves the Cinderella City, because we're always in the shadow as these 3 big stepsisters called Sydney, Melbourne and Canberra that just take the limelight all the time. And these places like Newcastle are really important, and our region have really big stories to tell, but no one ever gets to hear them. So for a time now, we're starting to get those stories out, but it takes a lot of effort. So we'll be relying on your support for years to come, because there's all sorts of challenges with MBN and the television archive and things that are very vulnerable that we're trying to sort of get our heads around now, because that stuff is at risk. A lot of the paper stuff we can keep forever. But anyway, thank you very much, Chancellor. It's a joy, and that we'll sign a little full stop on that one, and now we'll move to the next thing, which is Shane Frost.
I now slip away.
You can slip away if you
Because
like.
in all of that, you might have seen me do a message. That was the Vice Chancellor.
All right. Give him our best from us.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much. Okay.
Jane, did you want to sit there?
Did you want to sit here?
And that way
Did I?
you'll be facing the
I want
camera.
to see something.
What do you want?
No, I'm right.
You all right?
Yes.
All right. So look, Shane's going to be our next presenter. So I've known Shane for many, many years, and for many, many years there's been a chart sitting on the Hunter Living Histories site from 1841. Now, the person that drew attention to us was the late Russell Rigby, which is Mark Rigby's brother. He found this thing in the Diggs database, and we put it up online because it was an intriguing map that was done in 1841 of Lake Macquarie, but it also had all these interesting annotations relating to Aboriginal language, Aboriginal places, really intriguing. So it was layers upon layers. Now, Shane wrote a book on this one chart. He's literally written the book on it, and for the last year or so we've been backwards and forwards looking at this thing. And just, I think it was a week or 2 weeks ago, Dr. Julie McIntyre announced that she was giving a speech to the Royal Australian Historical Society on, guess what? This chart. So I said, Shane, it was all about Aboriginal connections with this chart. So I said, Shane, you've got to get your book up online so I can share it with Julie. So that's what we did a few days ago. Was it a few days ago? A week ago. Okay, that was a week ago. And so we thought we'd invite Shane to come and tell us all about it.
Okay. Well, I'd just like to thank you for the opportunity to be able to talk about it, because without this, people like myself wouldn't have that opportunity. You know, just a brief background on myself. I never finished school. I am, as you heard before, I'm a Wobbical. You know, I was told from the day I started school that I'd never amount to anything. And that's what I've lived with basically most of my life. You know, if you're told enough something, then you start to believe it. But I've got a great passion for history, and not just the history of our people, but history in general. And there's certain things that I focus on, and you know, I've got to say my wife is absolutely unbelievable because of what she has to put up with. Because when I get engrossed in something, I've just got to dive into it. And you know, yesterday I spent 12 hours sitting in front of the computer because I hadn't actually gone through this and done any editing. So I just want to say to anyone that might have found this online, because it is online, obviously, on Hunter Living Histories, if you have downloaded it, I've got the edited version, and I've really, that's really worried me because of what's happened in my past. I don't want people to think that I'm an idiot. I'm being really honest here. But when you're told you are, you know, it's hard to shake that. So, you know, I've been working on this for over 3 years, and there's a lot of stuff in there that's prior to that, many years research, and I've put this together because it was information that was not there. The chart, you saw it online there. There it is. You know, when I saw this, there is one chart that was in Neil Gunston's books, but it wasn't this particular chart. Neil Gunston done 2 volumes on our people, the Wobbical, back in 1969, I think it was. And there was a chart in that, one of those volumes, just a plain chart, and that intrigued me in itself. There's this chart here, which we heard, you know, when that was found, and that intrigued me even more because it had words from our people on it. There's a lot of things written on that chart, and I started looking really hard at it, and I thought, hang on, you can see there, it says Victoria Bay. If you go looking for that anywhere, you won't find any reference to it anywhere on the internet or anywhere like that. It's in no books. And if you have a look at that writing that's there, this is what jumped out off the page at me. You have a look at the writing there, Victoria Bay, and if you look to the left, you'll see writing there, it says dikes, and it's talking about the sand beds up on the top left corner. That's a totally different hand that wrote that to Victoria Bay. And there's a few other notations on this chart that differ from that handwriting. So I've actually put a bit of research into that. You can see there, that's similar handwriting to Victoria Bay. But if you drop down a little bit further on that, you'll see that's totally different handwriting again. The people were under the assumption that this is written or annotated by a Reverend Clark, and he was a geologist here around the 1840s in this area, and Sydney and all over the place. He was done a lot of work, and they, everyone sort of thought, well, this has been written on by Clark, and I looked a bit harder into that. And in the book, if you want to have a look at it, I show you the difference between the handwriting, and I identify, as far as I can, the two people whose handwriting exists on this chart. The other thing that got me is there's, as I say, there was no record of this. If you look at the bottom of the chart, down the very bottom, the other way, right to the left, you'll see you go up a little bit, and you'll see that it's got written there that it was lithographed by Baker, and I in the book I focus a bit on William Baker, and you'll see there it says that this sketch is from the examination of a W.S. Proctor, August 1841. And I thought, who is W.S. Proctor? Who is he? And I thought, I'll go online and have a bit of a look, because I'll find out who he is. I went online and there's nothing. No one knew who he was. There was nothing about who Proctor was. I had a look at the State Library, where there is another chart, which I found. I started looking more heavily into it, and there was only at this time, when this came out in 2013, there was two known charts. So the one that appeared in Neil Gunston's volumes, and this one. And since then, I've been able to find another 4 charts. One of those charts in particular has, it's a notation on it, and I've been able to identify whose handwriting that is. And so I've been able to find this information out that wasn't available until this point in time. So there is another 4 charts out there, and possibly more. I've, along with Bronwyn, my wife, we've made quite a few trips down to the state records, and discovered quite a lot of information there. The research that's gone into this was, for me, absolutely massive research. And like I say, it was nothing to sit there for 10 or 12 hours a day putting this stuff together. And I've gone into it, and it's analytical. It's an analysis of this chart. And I thought I was going to be just talking about this chart, but unfortunately, when you start looking at these things, more comes out of it. And it just gets bigger and bigger, and snowballs, and your life's consumed by it. And I've talked his ear off so many times, Johnny, about different things, but I'm passionate about this. I really am passionate about bringing the history of this area out. This is Lake Macquarie, and no one knew anything about this. It was just a map that existed with some handwriting on it that they thought was maybe it's from Clark. He's got his initials on it, W.B. Clark. And that was sort of it. No one questioned who was Proctor. And when I looked at the State Library and found there was a chart there, I also found that a lot of people that had titled this because it was in their collection had spelled his name with OR. But if you actually look, it's ER, Proctor, not Proctor. And there it is there, Proctor.
Yep.
And, you know, I sort of thought, well, you know, why can't people just read what's there and you know, and say, oh, well, it's Proctor. So I go into that a little bit too, because that was a bit of an issue for me. And I ended up finding out, because no one knew who he was. Like I say, I thought I'd go online and go, who's W.S. Proctor, and pop up, and that was be it. No, there was nothing. So anyway, there was quite a lot of things came out of this about this area. And there's things that stand out about it. It's 360 pages. I never ever thought I'd write anything, and especially, you know, nothing. If it was a couple of pages, I'd be amazed. But this turned out to be 360 pages, and you can see there it says "Forget Me Not." So remembering lost lives and legacies. It's a W.S. Proctor and the 1841 Proctor chart. Now, I haven't called it a map because it's not a map. It's a nautical chart, and it's the first nautical chart of Lake Macquarie. So that's it's really important, this. There were a couple of academics that had written about this that I did find, but only very short little couple of sentences, and all it was W.S. Proctor, the map of Lake Macquarie. Basically, what you see there that's what it was. So that's what made me go, well, this is someone that is forgotten. No one knows who he is. And the State Library had him down as a surveyor because it's a map. But that's not actually what he is. He wasn't a surveyor. So I go into that too. And I suppose it started to get me to that point where I wanted to put this bloke back together. He's someone that's forgotten, and he may as well never have existed because no one cared anymore. So when I started looking at him, I'll tell you here, his name's William Sands Proctor. And he came here to Australia in the 1830s. He's a master mariner, and there's all this information about him now that's out there if people wanted to research it. This chart was never done for Proctor. He didn't do it for himself. He didn't do it for any other reason, but he was asked to put this together by a very well-known person of the era in Lake Macquarie, and he was the person behind our language that was printed into books of the Bible. I'm giving a lot of stuff away here.
Still want to buy them.
But I'd really encourage people to go and read this because it makes all these connections that you would never, ever have thought it would make. I've done it like this too because you can see there's a primary source, and I've put that on the page so that what I'm writing about this, people can read it from when it was written and go, and it has there in blue, you can click on that and that'll bring up where that is found on Trove. So it's all there, so you're not going to go, well, you know, is this bloke really just making this up? Because it's all there in black and white. If you drop down a little bit on that one, Anne, you'll see there, that's a record of William Sands Proctor as a deputy postmaster at Lake George in 1837. And you can see William Sands Proctor there, and he was given that permission, that position as the deputy postmaster. There's all this information in there about him, and like honestly, you know, anyone that's done research, you know, you're diving into these documents. This is from State Archives, New South Wales State Archives. This is a letter from William Sands Proctor to the Colonial Secretary. There's letters in there from his wife. You know, he's in different positions. He's the postmaster there. He becomes an overseer of the colonial hospitals. He was here in Newcastle at the hospital in Newcastle in 1841-42. But in between all that, he was still a master mariner, and he was a captaining ships, vessels. Most of them were schooners, and he was heading up and down the coast around to all the different places around Australia. He was up into the Solomon Islands, Tahiti, China, all those areas. And I thought, what happened to this bloke? Where did he go? I went on to Births, Deaths and Marriages, had a look, and, you know, that's the first port of call for anyone that does family history research, to find out if there's any death notices. I couldn't find anything, no death. Had a look at the state records down there. There was no will. There was no probate whatsoever. And so I thought, where did he go? What happened to him? And he'd made a lot of connections to different people. The one that I was talking about earlier was Threlkeld. There's a connection there. I'll show you how that connection comes out, and it's actually in a cheque that you'll find if you read through it. This is a place he bought at Wombat Brush down near Berrima and that area. 60 acres he owned there. I've gone back through the records looking at that, all the land records, and this is an indenture of him owning that land at Wombat Brush. Actually, Bronwyn and I visited that property just earlier this year. I wanted to go and see it, and we went there and had a look. I'm not going to tell you how his demise comes about. I'd like you to read the book, because this is where his son dies, John Seaforth Proctor, and he dies in this house, home of peace down in Newtown. And so I've put in I like pictures of people if I can find them, or where they've lived, because it puts flesh on bones, if you know what I mean. So I think that's important. We can put a picture in our mind of who these people are and what they look like, but if you can actually put a picture up of where they lived or anything like that, it gives you a greater understanding of these people and makes you more connected to them. You know, this is about Lancelot Edward Threlkeld's son, Lancelot Edward Threlkeld Jr. He's part and parcel of this whole story. You learn all about the Threlkelds. I've got some pictures, photographs in there of the Threlkeld's children that no one's ever seen before. It's never been printed. And there's a lot of things in there that are firsts that no one's ever seen before. So, and no one's known about. So that's Lancelot Trelkeld Jr. and his wife Esther. Esther was Esther Lloyd from the family of George Alfred Lloyd. He was a parliamentarian, an auctioneer. He was an auctioneer. He went into insolvency. They had to go to England. He came back. I know I'm trying to get all this in, and I'm giving all the secrets away. But I just I really am passionate about this, and it'd be great if you could have a look. One other thing that's in there that, and it sounds really silly, but it was a standout for me, is a fellow by the name of James Hume. He was an architect. He designed a lot of the big buildings in Sydney in the early period. And the Jewish tabernacle, that was the first tabernacle built in Australia, he designed. There's, I think, a St Andrew's Cathedral. He'd done that. There was all this stuff. He bought a property off William Proctor. And I wasn't going to even touch on it, but I thought, who is this James Hume? And I started looking into him, and he got very interesting. And what he'd done in the colony. And anyway, so I one of the things that came out about him was that he in the 1840s had found out about concrete. And so what he done, he concreted a footpath and guttering at the front of his home in Sydney. And he writes to the council then and says, look, this is something that is fantastic because the flagstones wear away. The guttering that they had there was just timber and stuff, and it washes away. And, this would be good to have in front of all the houses in Sydney. And obviously they go, no way. But a few people that are well-to-do, they got him to do a bit here and there. But I looked worldwide. When was the first concrete footpath put in place around the world? And you look at England and Europe and America. And the next thing that popped up was in America, one of the towns there, they come up with this fantastic idea. How about we put concrete out front of our place in a bit of a curve? But that wasn't until 20 years later. So I sort of put it in there. This is another first for Australia, is that here's concrete footpath. And I know it sounds really stupid, this concrete footpath, but for me that was just a knockout because, that's something that no one knows about. Yet this was done 20 years before it became popular anywhere else. And it's right here on our doorstep, basically. So, there's a lot of things in this that made me go, wow, I'd never have thought that. Just down to, and I go into Trelkeld's life a lot, and about his vision as being a visionary. I talk a bit about the missions, but not to a great extent, and I talk about his family. But I'd really, like I say, if you want to download it, just wait another day.
I'll get both versions.
Because one version is not edited, and when I went through and edited, I went, oh no.
Yeah. And I thought after all this time he would have given me the definitive one.
Yeah, no.
Anyway.
I just I'm getting the wrap up.
Bronwyn and I have got a thing. If he was going to sit next to me, I would have kicked him in the leg, and Bronwyn was going to glare at him. But obviously,
you can see I'm passionate, and I am passionate, and keep an eye on this space because I'm going to actually be writing a couple of more things now, and there'll be other things about this area.
We've opened the floodgates now and there's nothing
Have you
stopping him.
wanted to go, Shane?
Because Shane, really, if you have a look at the book, the magnum opus of John McVie on Joseph Lyson, the SF all throughout that book is Shane Frost. So he's been in there, but he's been in the backgrounds a bit. And when we have our chats, it can go. It's like takes me back to when I was a school kid with the phone, and you'd be talking hours with your friends on a lounge upside down. People would come into the room and complain, "Get off the phone!" Someone might be trying to ring us. So that's what talking with Shane is like. But this is his first sort of venture out there, so it's been you're an unvarnished diamond. All right, that's what I would call you, and there's going to be a few more, and he digs up this stuff, which is incredible. He's got the analytic mind. He just hasn't been through a university education, right? But,
and unfortunately, sometimes that plays against you.
It doesn't matter. It's all right.
Just one last thing. If you have a look, I go into the Clark's, the writing that's there, the different hands that's written, and I do a comparison of the handwriting because I went and I've had a look at the handwriting, and there is a comparison of the handwriting and how I've come to the conclusion. I've come to the conclusion of the different hands and who they are that's written that annotated.
Could I ask a question on that? Over what time frame do you think those different hands added remarks?
Yep, I believe it's within 12 months.
Oh, okay.
As you saw there, Victoria Bay, that. I'm not going to tell you who it is because I want you to read. And to read it, honestly, I must say this is a hard read. It's not an easy read, not because of the mistakes, but it's not an easy read either. But keep at it. And if you miss, like I say in the preface, if you jump to parts, you won't understand it all. But I believe it's 12 months. I tell you exactly when the Proctor chart was produced. I've worked that out. And who commissioned the Proctor chart, for what reason. But definitely have it is about 12-month period because Clark come to this area in 42 and the Proctor chart was done in 41. So it's within that 12-month period that both hands were on that chart.
Thank you.
Any other quick burning questions for Shane before Bronwyn and I
discover how he departs?
Yeah. You will find it because I didn't find that out until when I was going to give it to Johnny 12 months ago. I didn't, and then after that I found out the demise of William Sands Proctor, and you'll think that's amazing too once you read it. So I did find how he died, and why he's not registered here for births, deaths, and marriages. It is a good read, even though I say so myself.
I think from someone who's had an interest in Threlkeld and obviously your people, like Macquarie, the earliest stuff, for me it's been peripheral to further west, but even so they relate because we knew that people were always in touch. But the fact that you brought this information together, dovetailed, sifted it through the way you have, and produced an outcome. Like you, and I'm sure there are others here too, we've all put stuff online and regretted it afterwards when we realised, well, that information was totally wrong that I got. We live with it.
Yeah, well, I'm going to say the information that's in there I know is right, to the point that I looked at the primary sources as far as that's concerned. But there were some typos. But don't worry about that because I've gone back through it. And even though I've probably edited it, there might be some more typos.
The point is stuff happens.
Yeah.
You get more information. It alters your thinking about this, that or the other. And you mightn't have done it through university, but University of Life has set you up very well.
Yeah, thank you very much. So,
all right. Thank you very much, Shane. Round of applause. Okay, and you have an important announcement
Yes,
through Page Right, our
important
manager, with
announcement.
regards to the Vera Deakin Regional History Fund Creative in Residence.
Yeah, so we're very thrilled to announce Dr. Carl Caulfield, who's with us today, and very excited about the news that Carl was successful in getting our first Creative in Resident program here in the library, funded through the Vera Deakin Regional History Fund. Also a distinguished Newcastle playwright. Oh, sorry, I'm just reading it. Oh, no, sorry. Just reading it.
Oh, it's
sorry. Director and so on the judging panel we had Rosemary Milson, Dr. Kerry Glastonbury and Dr. Kaylee Brooker. They selected Carl for his compelling project proposal that comprises a captive and captivate the community in the impressive record of award-winning playwright. So I'll share the link in the chat shortly, but it's just got some highlights in regard to some of the plays that Carl has created over the years, and a link to the Stray Dogs Theatre Company with some of those links to previous productions. And in 2003, Carl was commissioned by the ABC Newcastle Radio to write and direct The Night They Nearly Nobbled Nobbies, which sounds as if it would have been something good for the nobbies.
I didn't know the alternative name.
Yeah. That went live to air, and also been recipient of Newcastle City Council Award for Outstanding Achievement in Newcastle Theatre, and has also worked at the university in the drama department during what time period was that? Was that in the 1990s?
Yeah, that was when Victor was in charge. Victor Emiliano, you remember?
2000s.
2000s, yeah.
Yeah.
During Carl's residency here at the library, he'll be working on a dramatic performance piece on the life and work of Joseph Lycett, who was born in 1774 to 1828. Most of us know of this notorious convict and well-known artist. We've never really dug deep into his personality, so I think the research that Carl will do will uncover a lot more about the man, his time in Newcastle in particularly, and his background. So we're really excited to have Carl with us on a regular basis here in the library doing that research, and then later in the year he will be involved in doing the actual on-site live performance at the university. So that will be later this year, and it will be a community event, so we'll sort of be able to publicise it and have sort of people from across the community come. So look, we're really thrilled, and congratulations again, Carl. I'm not sure if you want to say a few words or anything about the application you put in.
Well, I just wanted to, I haven't prepared anything other than to say I'm very excited about, the possibility of just tapping into the archives here. I mean, I've only just started really to scratch the surface, but it is this, you've got access to hidden gems really here, and I'm sort of very excited to not only create a work, but also to proselytise on behalf of this special collections, because I really wasn't aware of it myself prior to, making the application. I'd been interested in Lycett, and I showed Johnny this book because I picked up a collection of poems by Brecht, and I thought, and this was the day before I was coming here to meet you, and I just thought I'll read a bit of Brecht, just to kind of, purify my brain. And I opened the book of poems, and there was this cutting that I secreted in the book years before on Lycett, which I brought in and showed you. And on the same day, I got the views of Australia. My mother-in-law she heard that I'd got because I was on my way to Uluru when I got the phone call from Paige Wright that I'd got the gig, which was very exciting. And when my mother-in-law heard about that, she's given me this collection of paintings by Lycett with contextual writing to it, and it's the one that he took over before his demise, which some of us may know about. So it's all kind of falling into place. But to come here and realise that if you are going to maybe talk about the Awabakal, you've got descendants here, or if you're going to talk about Threlkall, there's people here who are already connecting with that context. It's nice to think that you're not just going to be using books, but you're actually, it's this communal thing as well. So I think that's going to be interesting. I can't say too much about where this piece is going yet because I'm trying to remain open. I'm a big fan of Keats talked about negative capability, which is a nice phrase for just remaining completely open. But obviously there are thoughts as well, because at a certain point, you're going to kick yourself up the fundament and get something produced. So, it's not going to be an epic play, because obviously you've got to work within the frame of the budget. But
It could be an opera down the track.
I was told today, somebody said somebody's already working on an opera. I must admit I'm open to all possibilities at the start, and reading a lot of different material now, including the book that you worked on with John McPhee.
Convict artist.
Yeah, that's terrific. And the Turner, of course, I've got all that. I've also mentioned I'm quite excited by the language of the period as well, especially the convict argot, the flash language. That just excites me. And I think coming at it from somebody who is a con man, I think that will be interesting. Somebody who is into deception, that appeals to me as well, because drama is about a form of deception in a way. So yeah, thank you. I think it's a great opportunity that you've offered somebody, and I'm honoured and really excited to be part of it. So let me thank you back.
That's great.
Uh-huh.
So we've had the two books, we've had the film, Stories of Our Town, and now we're going to have the play.
Yes.
And Carl also mentioned there might be an opera. All right, now we love Broke, and we've got Dane Simpson here, who's beaming in from Broke. And it looks like your MPN has held up, Dane. Is that right?
Right. Thank you very much, John. And it's great to be here. Thank you for everybody for having me on board. I'm actually an amateur historian, very amateur, who got landed with the job of coordinating the Broke's bicentennial, which is actually the 1824 was the land grant to John Marquette Blaxland, the son of the original John Blaxland of sort of legislative council fame, and a brother, the nephew of Gregory Blaxland, who walked over the Blue Mountains with a couple of friends. Marquette Blaxland actually had an interesting background. He was an adventurous young lad, because by the age of 19, he'd actually explored the Great North Road. He was one of the group that actually went on the Great North Road, came through here, liked the land, and got Dad to apply for a grant, which he got. I think it was finished up about 3,700 acres, smaller than that at the start. And then Mitchell, who was walking through in 1930, turned around and said, "This is a great spot for a village. I'll call it Broke after a friend of his, Broke de Vere, who was a exploring officer in Wellington's Peninsular Army." and as Mitchell was too, though nobody talks a lot about that. But I understand a lot of Mitchell's papers are still his papers from the Peninsular War are still actually in the library, in the Sydney Library, in the Mitchell. What we're trying to put together, probably most people know of Anne Dunn's extremely good book, published in 1915, Broke to Broke. You haven't seen it. Published with the assistance of the mining of, I think then Extrata as it was, now Bulga Coal. And I think that covered everything very effectively. So it's really trying to fill in gaps and create interest for people, the community, while we celebrate our first 200 years and get ready for the next 200. I think interesting stories that have come through, like the Broke Railway League, when they were very busy trying to get a railway from here, and the gentleman who rode from Gosford to Broke in one day at the age of 70, and then rode back. Or there was the Broke Aerodrome of 1942-43, actually built right now where the mine is. But I didn't know that anybody ever landed it, but it was one of the Brisbane line defences and creation of a dispersal airstrip just outside Broke. Interesting community. It had gone through, I think, iterations of the population, its activities. It was originally pastoral, became a dairy. At one stage it was a great place for raising horses, particularly whalers, and then moved into vines. In fact, the vines have been here on and off for since the beginning, but really only successfully since the 1980s, 1990s, when the vines became successful, largely because of the introduction of irrigation and a private water distribution system, which has kept the wine industry alive. In fact, in 1920, soldier settler movement was quite significant. There were somewhere about 30 soldier settlers in the village. They were all given, I think it was 50,000 rootstock cuttings of vines, and they're all told to go and grow vines. And they then finished up with 1 year of drought and 2 years of drought, and then they all walked off. And I don't think any of them ever actually lasted beyond, maybe one lasted beyond 2 to 3 years, which is very sad. There is a film of it, but I can't yet find it. There was a film made in 1921 by one of the film companies, which actually shot the soldier settlers on the ground and what they were doing and how they were done. So that, if anyone can ever seen that, then they let me know. I suppose what I'm looking for from this group is any other good stories, knowledge about Broke. I've talking to John about linking with the Aboriginal community and getting a better impression of pre-1824, and I think that's quite important. We have strong support for the local community. I'm hoping we will be running an exhibition of the story of Broke and some of these stories and get them into context. We have good photographic record, some interesting photographs, interesting history, everything from a good scandalous murder to I'm sure the bushfires and floods that we've had in the last couple of years, and as well as some interesting people. Anyone who's got any contribution to make to the future of Broke, I'd be very interested to hear from. Thank you, John.
Thank you, Dave. Well, we'll do what we can to put you in contact with as many resources as we've got access to. The films, we should be fine to screen. There's no troubles there. The films that we've sent you. And we might be getting an Aboriginal connection story recorded, okay?
Yep.
So we'll get those arrangements done as well. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. It's Jack Lewis's last day.
Yes, it's Jack's last day, and I think he's zooming in. So Jack, feel free to say anything if you're zooming in. Jack is a career-ready placement student from the University of Newcastle doing communications, and he's been with us this semester looking at the Cygnus Storm weekend and locating any historic footage and information. We also did an oral history with Clem Doyle, who was a young equivalent to SES volunteer on that weekend. So describes sort of in that he wasn't directly involved with the Cigna rescue or any part of the shipwreck, the ship, but he was working across the city to make sort of houses safe and things like that. So I'll share in the link shortly. That's that blog post there. He's done some research on the ship. We also digitised some of the material that Clem brought in with him the day of his interview, and that was around the involvement in the civil defence and the sorts of training that they had. A lot of the equipment related to were leftovers from World War II, apparently, but how far we've come in terms of the SES from something that was sort of fairly basic training and having to sort of use your own vehicles and things like that. So just want to congratulate Jack for being part of this project. And Jack, do you want to say a few words at all?
Yeah, sure. It was honestly like so grateful to have been a part of this and like sharing like this piece of preserved history. And yeah, it's just been like working on this has just been like so interesting, like editing like the videos and and just trying to like see like okay like how this like links up to like some of the other events that have happened in the Hunter. Yeah.
Thanks, Jack.
Some of this might actually make it into the Shipwrecks movie, is that right?
Well, it might, and I know the footage that Jack sort of brought together was aired on NBN the Sunday night of the 50 years, and it was part of the news story. So it's a nice way students connect with the community, and then
Thank you so much.
So congratulations, Jack.
Congratulations.
Oh, thanks. Thank you, guys.
Okay, Kate Ulrich.
Now, Kate, she was going to try to join us towards the end of the meeting just to talk about some online heritage awareness training modules they're doing for Hunter Water. Now, I won't speak on her behalf.
All right, so we've got an event celebrating gay sex made legal in New South Wales.
That was last night, actually.
Was that John?
I'll give a report if you want.
Yeah, give us a report, John.
Okay.
John Whitty.
Well, Friday marks the 40th anniversary of legalisation of homosexuality in New South Wales, with the Premier giving an apology. Kerry Bashford and I will be attending. And last night I gave a talk, and Kerry gave a personal sort of account of the Newcastle gay lobby. He was 18, working at the Cardiff local workshops, and he contacted the lobby in Sydney, and then they sort of started coordinating activities between Newcastle and Sydney with regard to lobbying for gay rights, for legalisation of homosexual sex. What I wanted to do was emphasise the Newcastle initiatives, because Newcastle's been written out of history, surprisingly, like it never is written into the history. But the Synod supported legalisation. Trades and Labour Council did as well, and this is all before 1984. And surprisingly, Newcastle Herald, which had an atrocious record outing homosexuals, was very, very positive, both with the changes to the Anti-Discrimination Act and with the legalisation. What I thought we would, was something I was going to talk about, but the rest of it was about, the rest of the talk was about Sydney, and that was trying to bring another approach to it, and I'll give a report to the 78ers newsletter on the talk itself. But we've been busy I gave an opening address for the pink bands, the Labour Council, and then Kerry and I had a desk at the Ida Hobbit evening at the Newcastle Museum, and we were conducting some short interviews. But anyone volunteered for an interview, but everybody was very interested about our history walks. And last night was the talk. Oh, there was something I meant to mention. NBN. Somebody in the audience said they were at one of the lobbies talks, and the NBN broke in unannounced and then filmed everybody. It'd be shocking. So I wonder whether we've got that on.
Maybe. What year was this?
This would have been 83.
We might.
Actually, yeah, we might have that.
So
That's soon against it.
Yeah.
So that was it was more an outing exercise, a bit of colour and movement for Newcastle viewers, but it was pretty atrocious. Anyway, that was last night.
Thank you, John. And then there's a celebration of the life of Linda Mine
Yes,
coming up.
that's right. So that's on Saturday the 15th of June from 2 till 5 at Newcastle City Hall. Again, I've just linked information in the post, and that can be shared with anybody that knew her, and everyone's always welcome to go along.
And the 2024 Margaret Henry Memorial Lecture.
Yeah, so the theme is Saving the Planet. We must do more to support young climate activists, presented by Dr. Leslie Canal, Associate Professor of Ethics and Practice and resident ethicist at the Crenlana Centre for Ethical Leadership, and that's on Thursday the 20th of June from 6 till 8 at Newcastle City Hall. And then the New South Wales History Week, 7th to the 15th of September, with the theme Marking Time. So have a look at that link.
All right, we're almost to the end of our day, and I'd just like to thank everyone for joining us. It's a very momentous day, and all the dramas that we put up with to get here. No. All things have to come to an end, I'm afraid, and today's show has now come to an end. Anyway, thank you very much, all the Next month's showcase is on the 1st of July. So we'll see you then. All right. Thank you very much.
Huge thanks to Anne Harding for helping me with the Cigna story as well. She huge props.
Thank you.
It's been amazing.